Hey, what's going on everybody? Alex here with Freedom Mowers. I hope you all are doing well. We've got a John Deere today that we're going to be working on. It is a D110 I got about a month ago, and the owner said that he was running it and all of a sudden he heard a lot of noise going on in the engine, and then he went to try to restart it and the motor was just spinning freely, sounding like it didn't have any compression. So I believe we are dealing with a blown engine or broken connecting rod. This is a really clean unit. Like I said, D110 automatic, should be 42-inch cut. We've got 130.5 hours on this machine. I think it's a 2017, but it's in really good shape. Couple little scratches here and there on it. Looking over the deck, I'll probably drop it down and take a close look, make sure none of those mounts are starting to crack loose. But overall, I don't think there's any tears in the seat. Rear gas tank on this one. No cruise control. Pretty basic automatic or hydrostatic drive. John Deere has the nice front end on it. Headlights are still really clear. And we have a Briggs single cylinder 19 horse, but it has, yeah, I can hear, oh boy, yeah, it's definitely, you can hear some chunks rattling around on the bottom end. So we'll go ahead and take the plug wire off, get this crusty champion out of here. And then I will grab a screwdriver so we can see what's going on, if this piston is moving or not. That plug is pretty crusty. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. The thing looks rough. There was a lot of debris packed around the cylinder head on here too, so it's possible that it overheated as well. Let me show you guys the oil on here. I can't remember if he had ran it low on oil or, oh yeah. Let me show you how much oil is in here. That's what we got left on the stick. There's like just enough to barely touch it, so it's probably like 1.5 quarts low. So not only was it low on oil, it was probably overheating. It's crazy. 130 hours on this thing and it's blown up. But just to verify, I'm just going to take this long screwdriver here. There's the piston. I'll push it down in there. Oh yeah, now it's binding up. There we go. Oh, no, it moved it. It just kicked it back up to the top of the cylinder, but it's not going back down. So definitely a blown connecting rod. What else? Who knows what else got destroyed in there, but let me show you guys what we've got. I have this Intech 18, I believe it was, and this actually came off from a snapper that I had that had a bad transmission, and they had actually bought this engine brand new from a dealer here in town. And I think, yeah, this one's a 2016. So from what I could tell, it didn't have a lot of hours on it, but basically what we're gonna do is just swap that on here and take all of the shrouds and some of the components, probably the carburetor, off from here, because this one's been sitting for a while. But this machine is a rear tank, so this one has the fuel pump mounted on the back. That one has the fuel pump mounted on the back. The voltage regulator is right on the side, right where this one is. And so everything should be plug and play. I think the only thing I've got going on with this is where they had it kind of spliced. So there's just a couple wires that I'm just gonna have to make good connections with. Other than that, should be should be pretty much plug and play. Alright, well I got the engine shroud off, and I forgot these fuel pumps are basically like mounted to the cover, so we'll see. I'm assuming everything was still good on here as far as the carburetor, fuel pump, but we can address that if needed. But yeah, I just got the wiring harness disconnected and the hot lead going to the starter. What else did we need to do? Unbolted the muffler, just keeping a pan of everything here. We just had the 4 bolts that hold the shroud, and then disconnecting the fuel lines, and then there's one more like little small screw, 1/4 inch, that goes into this intake tube. And I think all I've got left is just disconnecting the throttle cable, and I think we are ready to pull this engine. So obviously I gotta loosen up the bottom bolts, but there was a couple other things I forgot to mention to you guys. I was mistaken on the year. This one is a 2014 Briggs and Stratton, and also I noticed that the battery is from April of 2023, so battery's almost brand new in it as well. But let me go ahead and get the throttle cable disconnected. I'll get the engine mounting bolts loose, and then we'll get this thing pulled off from here. Alright, here's where we're at. I've got basically on the mowing deck with the front arm, it was going to be right in the way of the pulley. So I got the deck and dropped it down a little bit onto a jack stand and got the rod out of the way. We just got the double stack pulley, that's a 5/8 for the crankshaft bolt, and then we just have the 4 engine mounting bolts, which I think are a 15. It was kind of an odd size. I'm not used to metric on these. So we'll get those off from there. The deck belt is already off the pulley, and then we'll have to slip the drive belt off for the hydrostatic as well. But I think we are basically all set at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these bolts loosened up. Normally what I like to do, I have a electric impact that I normally use on like crankshaft bolts or flywheel bolts, stuff that I know is really gonna be hard on there. And then I've got my breaker bar. I usually break the torque for the engine bolts with that, and then I'll just use my impact with an extension to get them the rest of the way out. So let me get this unbolted and we'll get this engine off. Alright, so where I'm at on this, I didn't realize that because this engine was I guess a universal on what the application was going to be used for, the engine mounting holes, they were never tapped, so there's smooth bore in there, but the bolts that come with any of these are a self-tapping. So I've got this corner in and that corner in. They're almost all the way tight, but I've been starting them with the impact and then working them back and forth to get the threads cut. But I'm gonna get these other 2 in, and then we'll get the bottom pulley on and we can start actually buttoning up all the main components. Alright, finally got the 4 bolts in there, and I was mounting up the double stack pulley in order to get enough slack on your belt, make sure that the parking brake is engaged, and then you can take the belt and slip it over the pulley. But then once you get it lined up with the keyway, make sure that you basically pinch the belt together to go in between the 2 guards on the side. And once you get it in between those 2, push it up in position, and then I just got to put the crank bolt in here, and then we'll mount up the deck belt, and then we'll be able to get the rest of these components on. Alright, I think we are done on the bottom side besides hooking up the linkage for the front of the mower deck, but we're going to start on getting the exhaust mounted up. What I like to do is take a little bit of anti-seize and put it on the exhaust bolts. That way in the future I don't have issues with it, because these things do get stuck. So alright, well, I'm making good progress on the wiring here. I've got the starter wired back up. I have the engine harness. Basically what I did is I took the whole harness side from the other engine and just mounted it up, because this one had been spliced into and I really just didn't want to deal with fiddling with the connections on it. We already had a good harness over here, so everything is buttoned up. I did have to take the coil off the other one, and it was a bit rusty on the studs, so I went ahead and sanded down the studs here to make good contact with the coil. Added the kill wire for the magneto onto here. Now we've got coil, spark plug wire, and I started working on the front cover, or the shroud here, but what I noticed is this shroud, it should bolt up. They're both Intex, but what they did on these is they added this like large brace. Just got to take these two bolts loose and then take the brace from this one and swap it onto these front mounts, and then it'll go on the front holes for that. And other than that, we just got the fuel lines and throttle linkage, and we should be sitting pretty good to get this at least down on the ground, and we can start checking fluids and try to get this thing cranked over. Alright, so I was gonna put the other carburetor from the bad engine onto our new one, and one of the things I did notice is the intake manifold that goes to your airbox is different on these two. Basically, there's these little slots on the top shroud, and the way this one angles is more of a straight angle, and the one that's on this carburetor is more of a slanted angle. So this lid does not fit with this one, so we'll be swapping over this intake manifold and the carburetor. And if you guys have seen my other videos, it's real simple to take this off. You just have two 7/16, one on each side, the little PCV valve. You've got two 5/16 studs underneath there, fuel line, and then you just take it off and you have your choke linkage hooked up, and then your governor / throttle cable hooked up, and that's pretty much it. You can swap them right over. So I'm gonna get this swapped out and we'll get this thing on the ground. Check the oil in here. It's clean but low on the stick, so I'll add a little bit. I bought some, well, my wife bought me some oil a little while back at Costco in a big container, so that's been helping a lot because we had a lot of oil changes. Also, I hooked up the positive cable back to the battery and cleaned up the terminals, used some dielectric grease. I like to use that on all my connectors. So we'll go ahead and top off the oil, and then I think what I'm going to do is pull the fuel line off from the carburetor, and we can go ahead and try to start turning this over, make sure everything looks good, and see if we're priming fuel up through the fuel lines, and then after that we can try to start it. Alright, well, I got the oil topped off. I got the jumper pack on the battery. I didn't test the voltage yet, but I'm sure it's probably a little bit low. I got the fuel line disconnected from the carburetor, so we'll check to make sure the fuel pump's working, and make sure we're getting some clean gas through here. Make sure our parking brake is set. Alright, well, here goes the first crank over. Nothing yet. It's a smoke show. Good Lord. I guess it started on whatever was in the carburetor bowl. Why didn't you guys tell me it was just going to start up like that? So apparently the carburetor bowl still had plenty of fuel in it. And then you guys also didn't tell me that I had the pulse line and the feed line from the tank mixed up. So I pulled it out here because I knew it was going to be smoky. As far as when I pulled the carburetor off, there was oil that was kind of spilling out of the intake tube, and when we changed out the exhaust on here as well, there was oil on it because this engine's kind of been sitting on its side for a little while. But I did get these two flipped, and I was able to start getting some fuel priming up. There was definitely some dirt in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and dispose of this gas, clean out this container, and pump it again for a minute and make sure that we're getting clean fuel, and then we will hook it up. But we definitely know it starts right up, and it sounded really good. Let's try this again. I definitely make mistakes. I am not a professional, guys. I'm just a guy working on lawnmowers in the backyard and taking you guys along for the journey. So I appreciate y'all checking out the channel and all the people that have been here along for the ride. We've got tons of projects coming up. So let's see, we were able to pump that. Carburetor's probably dry now, so it might take a second. Throttle is working just fine. I checked the linkages earlier, and my choke is working just fine. So choke it. Parking brake is set. We can re-engage our hydro, and yep, let's give it a whirl. It's definitely going to be smoky for a few minutes till we clear that oil out. So I let this run for about 15 minutes. I did check the charging system on here. We're getting about 13.2, 0.3 at full throttle back to the battery, so that is good. Voltage regulator is working just fine. Stator's working good. I didn't see any leaks going on with it, and all the smoke cleared up, so we should be in pretty good shape. Also, the battery did take a charge. I'm going to check it, and then I'll probably trickle charge it too. But it was at 12.4 just a second ago. Just to show y'all, I do have to go see if I can locate that grass chute, but there is so much stuff packed on this deck. I don't know if you guys can see the new growth on here. Got my blower out here, so I'm gonna try to clean this thing up. There's weeds growing out of the side of it, and it's just totally packed, so I can't see what's quite going on with the the pulleys under here. So we're gonna get this blown out, and then I'll just double check to make sure everything's moving free and our engagement cable is working right, and then we can test out this deck. And it was incredible how much stuff was packed underneath of these covers and on top of this deck. Later when I go to clean the whole machine, I am gonna pull these spindle covers and check out everything underneath and make sure that's as clean as possible. But I did check, and the spindles are free. Idlers feel good, and our engagement cable did engage. Go ahead and put that on. So everything looks good here. Let's go ahead and crank it up. Try to cut a little bit of grass with it. Figure out the blade brakes on that. Man, that is awesome. This thing sounds super good. Really, it's not that hard of a job to do the engine swap as long as you have something that's compatible. You know, on this one it was a little bit easier because we have a manual PTO, so we don't have to have like a high output stator for an electric PTO or anything like that. But yeah, so far it's looking really good. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and basically start deep cleaning this thing. I don't know if I'm gonna take the deck off yet or not, but I'm at least pull the spindle covers and double check everything. The blades were almost like new on here. The oil was still really clean in this engine, just we topped it off. Probably gonna get a new air filter, fuel filter, and just clean the heck out of this thing. Maybe you put a fresh edge on the blades. But yeah, so far it looks awesome. Got another low hour machine with a newer engine that actually came on it, and it sounds really good. So let me get to cleaning this thing, and then we will check it out, see how good it looks, and we'll do some more cutting with it, make sure the deck's level. And all right, got most of the cleaning done. I still got a little bit more to go. There was some pretty heavy like staining on the deck and some of the really hard to get spots, so I'm gonna have to go back over that, and a couple other just odds and ends to go over. I still need to grease the steering in the front, but I did take off the spindle covers. Like I said, these ones did have Zert fittings on the spindles, so I greased the spindles on here. I transferred over that John Deere center cap on here. I mean, everything looks basically 100% factory. Like I said earlier, dielectric grease on the battery terminals, those are all cleaned up. Everything's secure. After I run it for a little bit, I am gonna double check those engine mounting bolts just to make sure that they have not walked out, since I had to basically tap those holes. I just want to make sure they're good. But yeah, overall this thing looks really good. May end up doing just a little bit of touch-up paint on the mower deck, but this thing, I let it sit for a few hours earlier, came over and just turned the key, just bumped it, and it started right up. I'm sure it will now too. Super good. I just got done leveling the deck on here, so the deck's level. I mean, everything's good to go. I'm gonna get the tripod, we'll go out, get a little bit of mowing footage on this thing, and we'll wrap it up. All right, well, I still need to adjust the brakes just a little bit on the spindles. They did still have good brake pads, but the arms on it were kind of stuck a little bit. So there are a couple little things that I need to finish up on here, but overall, man, this thing turned out really, really good. I want to know what you guys in your area would charge for a mower like this. So we've got a, well, I guess it's a 18 horse intake on here now, but a D110 hydrostatic transmission, 42-inch cut, 130 hours on it, brand new battery. It's gonna have brand new air filter, fuel filter, full tune-up, you know, turnkey, ready to cut. I think this is a really nice machine, and it did clean up good. I knew this one would, but yeah, it's just a bummer that they ran it low on oil and it let go. So it's about 110 out here today, so I'm ready to go in and call it quits. I really appreciate y'all checking out the channel. If you guys check out my shorts, a lot of times you'll see stuff that's going to be coming up. We've got endless amount of projects, but if you guys saw, we got a Skag Zero turn the other day, which is kind of looking like a basket case, but we're gonna get it all sorted out and have some fun. So I appreciate it as always, and on that note, let freedom ring, let those small engines sing. I'll see you all next time.